Good evening, friends. I want to talk to you today about something powerful, something personal, and something no one else can change but you. It's the truth that the only real limit in your life is yourself, not your boss, not your family, not your circumstances, not the government, not the economy, just you. You see, life doesn't respond to what you want. Life responds to what you become. And becoming something more starts when you take responsibility not for the world, but for your own thinking, your own actions, and your own decisions. People often say, I'd be further along if I had more money, more time, more connections. But let me ask you this, how much more could you accomplish if you got out of your own way? Your limits aren't out there. They're in here, in your habits, in your beliefs, in your excuses. And here's the good news. If the limit is you, that means you can change it. You can think bigger. You can act stronger. You can discipline yourself. You can grow. And you don't need permission to do it. The man or woman you admire, the one who's doing what you dream of, they don't have a secret advantage. They just started earlier, stayed longer, and refused to quit on themselves. So the question is, when will you decide to believe in yourself like that? Remember, you are not a tree. You can move. You are not a stone. You can grow. You are not stuck unless you decide to be. So starting today, trade your excuses for discipline. Trade your limits for action. Trade your fear for progress, because in the end, it's not the world that will hold you back. It's not failure that will stop you. It's not rejection that will defeat you. It's the belief that you can't when in truth you always could. So go out and prove it, not to others, to yourself, because the only limit is you. Everybody has wishes. We wish for success. We wish for health. We wish for better relationships, more money, more time. And there's nothing wrong with a wish. It's a start. It's a spark. But a spark alone doesn't build a fire. The truth is, life doesn't respond to what we wish for. It responds to what we work for. That's the difference between a dreamer and a doer. One lives in hope, the other in effort. And effort always produces results over time. You can sit around and wish for a better body, but unless you get up and move, unless you eat better, train consistently, and stay the course, nothing changes. The wish feels good in the moment. The work pays off in the long run. You can wish for wealth, but unless you learn how to manage a dollar, unless you get serious about creating value, saving, investing, and becoming a person of productivity, that wish won't pay the rent. It's work that builds the foundation, not just activity, but meaningful, focused work. It's tempting to think other people are just lucky, that they were in the right place at the right time. But often they just got serious earlier. While others were wishing, they were working. While others were complaining, they were creating. While others were dreaming about the future, they were building it one brick at a time. Wishing is easy. Working is what tests your commitment. That's why not everyone sees results, because not everyone is willing to pay the price. And make no mistake, everything worth having has a price. The question is, are you willing to pay it? The good news is, the price isn't money, it's effort, it's time, it's consistency. And everyone has access to that. If you're willing to do the work, you will eventually reap the rewards. That's the law. It may not happen overnight, but it will happen over time. So don't just wish. Put in the work. Get serious. Get focused. Do the small things every day that move you closer to the life you see in your mind. Because wishing might give you a moment of motivation, but working gives you a life of transformation. And that's the goal, not to just feel better about the idea of success, but to become the kind of person who earns it. People spend a lot of time waiting for things to get better, waiting for a break, waiting for someone to come along and make things easier. But here's the truth that hits hard and helps your life doesn't change by accident. It changes when you change. Not when your boss changes, not when the economy changes, not when your past gets rewritten or your problems disappear. You change your mindset, and suddenly the same world looks different. You change your habits and the same 24 hours start working in your favor. You change your attitude and the same challenges become opportunities. See, life is like a mirror. It doesn't give you what you want. It reflects who you are. If you want more, you have to become more. If you want better, you have to do better. And the moment you accept that, you take back your power. Most people are chasing results, but they're not working on themselves. They want the fruit without planting the seed, but the seed is growth. The seed is discipline. The seed is self-awareness, and nothing blooms until you plant that. You can't expect to get a new outcome with the same thinking that created the old one. That's why personal development matters, not because it sounds nice, but because it works. It rewires how you see, how you move, and how you show up. Now, here's the beautiful part. You don't have to change all at once. But if you just start shifting one better thought, one better habit, one better decision, the compound effect kicks in. And over time, your life begins to align with the new version of you. It's not magic, it's maturity. It's choosing to stop blaming and start building, because when you grow, everything else follows. Your income catches up. Your confidence shows up. Your relationships shift. Opportunities open. Why? Because life always mirrors who you're becoming. You want to change your life. Start with the person in the mirror. That's where all the power lies and where your next level begins. Excuses, they're clever. They sound reasonable. They feel comfortable. And the funny thing is, they always sound the best to the person who makes them. You can dress an excuse up in logic, you can coat it with emotion, and it'll still do the same thing, it'll keep you stuck. Excuses are little lies we tell ourselves to avoid doing the uncomfortable work that leads to growth. And the more we repeat them, the more convincing they become to us. I don't have time. I'm just not ready. I'm waiting for the right moment. I would, but you don't understand my situation. Now here's the truth. Maybe those things are true, but that doesn't mean they should run your life. Because as long as the excuse is in control, progress is on pause. See, excuses are easy. Discipline is hard, but excuses don't give you freedom. They give you a temporary way out and a permanent way down. And if you're not careful, they become your story. You start believing you're a victim of your circumstances instead of the author of your future. And no one is immune to this. We've all made excuses. We've all justified playing it safe. But at some point, you have to stop and ask yourself, is this story helping me or holding me? Because you can't build a strong life on a weak foundation of reasons why it can't be done. The people who grow, who rise, who thrive, they feel the same fears, the same resistance. But they've learned to trade excuses for action. They've learned that the fastest way to take back your power is to stop explaining why you can't and start proving that you can. You can either be right about your excuses or rich in results, but you rarely get both. So the next time an excuse shows up, don't fight it, don't shame it, don't challenge it. Look it in the eye and ask, is this the truth or is this just my comfort zone talking? That question alone can change your life, because once you stop believing your own excuses, your potential has nothing left in its way. Self-doubt is one of those quiet enemies. It doesn't scream at you. It whispers. It plants little thoughts like, what if I'm not good enough, or who am I to think I can do this? And if you listen long enough, those whispers become walls. That's what self-doubt does. It locks the door from the inside. You're not trapped by your circumstances. You're trapped by your thinking. The opportunity is still out there. The potential is still in you, but the belief is missing, and without belief, the door stays shut. You can have talent, skill, education, even support from others, but if you don't believe in yourself, none of that matters. Because you'll hesitate, you'll talk yourself out of it, you'll sabotage your own progress before anyone else even gets a chance to say no. Now here's the shift. Belief is the key. And just like a key, it doesn't take much. You don't have to be overflowing with confidence. You just need enough belief to try. Enough belief to start. Enough belief to keep going even when you don't see results right away. Belief doesn't mean you have it all figured out. It means you trust that you'll grow along the way. It means you stop measuring yourself against perfection and start measuring yourself against your own potential. And belief isn't something you wait for, it's something you build. You build it by keeping promises to yourself. You build it by doing hard things and proving you can. You build it by taking action in the face of fear. Every time you do, it's like turning the key just a little more until finally the lock gives way and the door opens to the life you've been waiting to walk into. So if you're feeling stuck, don't just ask what's holding you back. Ask what you believe about yourself. Because often it's not the world saying no, it's you not saying yes to your own ability. Remember, self-doubt locks the door. Belief opens it. And once you start walking through, you'll wonder why you ever hesitated in the first place. People often think that success belongs to those who start with more money, more time, more connections, more education. But if that were true, the richest people would be the ones who inherited it all, and that's not always the case. The truth is, this success isn't about resources, it's about resourcefulness. You can have every advantage and still stay stuck. Or you can have almost nothing and still rise if you know how to think, how to solve, how to adapt. Resourcefulness means you stop saying, I can't because I don't have, and you start asking, how can I create it with what I do have? That shift changes everything. It's easy to blame the lack of tools. But the person who wins isn't the one with the best tools, it's the one who uses what they've got the best. Sometimes the person with no budget ends up building something incredible because they were forced to get creative, to hustle, to think deeper, to move faster. That pressure creates innovation. That lack creates hunger. And hunger often beats comfort in the long run. Now, don't get me wrong, having resources is great, but they won't matter much without the mindset to use them. Give an unprepared person $1 million and they'll waste it. But give a resourceful person a single opportunity and they'll multiply it. You've probably heard someone say, if only I had more time. But they waste the time they already have. Or if I had more money, I'd start that business, but they won't read a free book on business while they're waiting. That's not a lack of resources, that's a lack of drive. Resourcefulness says, what can I learn? Who can I ask? How can I start small? What's possible right here, right now? Because you don't need perfect conditions to move, you need courage, creativity, and commitment. And all three are free. They're already in you. You just have to activate them. So the next time you feel like you're at a disadvantage, remember the most powerful people in the world didn't always start with more. They just did more with what they had. That's the secret. Not waiting for the right tools, becoming the right person. The real battle isn't out there. It's not in the economy. It's not in your past. It's not even in the people who told you you can't. The real battle, the one that decides everything, is between your ears. It's your thinking. It's how you interpret what happens to you. It's how you talk to yourself when no one else is around. Because let's face it, you can have talent, opportunity, even momentum, and still sabotage it all if your mind isn't on your side. Most people lose the fight before they even take the first step, not because they aren't capable, but because they've already convinced themselves it won't work. They've rehearsed their doubts so often, they sound like truth. And the mind is powerful, it doesn't care whether the story is positive or negative, true or false. It just believes what you tell it the most. If you say, I'm not good at this, your mind says, okay, let's stop trying. If you say, this might be hard, but I can figure it out, your mind says, let's go to work. The mind becomes either your greatest weapon or your biggest weakness, and the difference is how you train it. See, it's easy to point fingers. It's easy to say, I would be further along if life had been easier. But the real breakthrough happens when you realize, if I can win in my mind, I can win anywhere. That means learning how to take control of your focus, learning how to stop feeding fear and start feeding faith, learning to replace automatic doubt with intentional belief. And it's not about being perfect. You're human, those negative thoughts will still show up. But the question is, do you let them stay? You can't stop the bird from flying over your head, but you can stop it from building a nest in your hair. So when that voice in your head says, who do you think you are? You answer, someone who's growing, someone who's learning, someone who's not giving up, because once you win the battle up here, everything else gets easier. The effort becomes consistent. The discipline becomes natural. The vision becomes clear. And the outside starts to match the inside. That's the real game, not changing everything around you, but mastering what's inside you. Because when your mind is right, the rest of your life starts to follow. There are some things in life you just can't delegate. Growth is one of them. Discipline is one of them. And yes, you can't hire someone to do your push-ups. You can pay for a trainer. You can buy the best gym membership. You can even have someone show you the perfect form. But if you don't get on the floor and start moving, nothing changes. That's the point. There's no substitute for personal effort. There's no shortcut to transformation. You can't outsource the work that builds your character. You can't assign someone else the task of building your courage, your consistency, or your commitment. We live in a world that's constantly looking for easier ways, faster methods, more convenience. And while there's nothing wrong with efficiency, there are certain areas in life that only respond to one thing: you doing the work. Whether it's your health, your mindset, your business, or your relationships, the progress you want is directly tied to the effort you're willing to put in. Not just once, not just when it's easy, but consistently. The danger comes when we start believing that just being around the work counts. You can listen to all the motivational speeches, you can read all the books, you can follow all the right people. But if you're not applying it, if you're not sweating through the process, you're just watching the game, not playing it. No one can do your push-ups. No one can write your goals for you. No one can build your discipline. No one can live your life. That's your job. And that's good news, because it means you're in control. You don't have to wait for someone to give you permission. You don't need to rely on anyone to turn your life around. You just need to decide, are you willing to show up for yourself every day, even when it's hard, even when it's slow, even when no one's clapping? Because that's what changes things, not talent, not luck, not magic. Effort, daily. Intentional, personal. So whatever the push-up represents in your life, whether it's starting a business, repairing a relationship, taking care of your body, or renewing your mind, just remember, no one else can do it for you. But the moment you start doing it for yourself, everything else begins to shift. Fear is something we all feel. It's natural. It's part of being human. Fear shows up when you're about to do something new, something uncertain, something meaningful. It whispers, what if you fail? What if you look foolish? What if it doesn't work out? And in that moment, fear feels very real. It feels permanent, but it's not. Fear is temporary. It shows up like a storm, loud, uncomfortable, maybe even paralyzing for a moment. But storms pass, emotions shift, the nerves settle. And if you push through it, you often realize the fear wasn't as big as it seemed. It was just the price of entry to something greater. Now, here's the real danger, not the fear itself, but what happens when you listen to it too long. Because when fear makes the decision, dreams stay in the box, talents go unused, words go unsaid, chances go untaken, and life becomes filled not with failure, but with regret. And regret is heavy. Regret is quiet, but it lingers. It shows up late at night asking, what if I had tried? It shows up when you see someone else doing the thing you talked yourself out of. It shows up when you realize the window has closed, not because it wasn't possible, but because you didn't move. See, you can recover from failure. You can learn from a mistake. You can rebuild after a setback. But regret doesn't give you anything back, just a memory of what could have been. And most of the time, what we regret isn't what we did, it's what we didn't do. We regret the chances we didn't take, the words we didn't speak, the opportunities we didn't chase, because fear told us not now, maybe later. But later becomes never. That's why you've got to move in spite of fear. You've got to feel it and go anyway. Not recklessly, but boldly. You've got to decide that your future matters more than your comfort, that growth matters more than approval, that purpose matters more than temporary emotion, because fear fades. But the opportunity doesn't wait, and one day you'll look back and the question won't be, was I scared? The question will be, did I let it stop me? So choose wisely, choose courage, even if it's quiet. Choose action, even if it's small. Choose to live in a way that leaves no room for regret. Because the pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret can last a lifetime. If you want more in life, it's not just about wanting it. It's not about wishing for it. It's not about hoping for it. If you want more, you have to become more. That's the truth. You can't keep living the same way and expect a different outcome. You can't stay stuck in the same patterns and think that suddenly one day more will just show up. It doesn't work that way. Growth precedes gain. The world doesn't give you more because you're entitled to it. It doesn't give you more because you complain about your circumstances or because you wait for a miracle. It gives you more because you've put in the work to become the kind of person who is capable of handling it. You want a better life? Then become a better person. You want a bigger income? Then become more valuable to the marketplace. You want deeper relationships? Then become more loving, more present, more generous. Because the person who is more capable of handling what they want is the person who has already stretched, grown, and developed themselves. You won't attract what you're not ready for. That's the difference between being ready for success and just wanting it. Being ready means you've done the internal work, you've sharpened your skills, you've disciplined your habits, you've worked on your mindset, you've developed resilience. And once you do, the world begins to respond differently. Opportunities start showing up. People start taking notice. The doors open. But here's the key. It's not just about being good enough. It's about growing to the point where you're excellent. You don't get rewarded for being mediocre. You get rewarded for going beyond what's expected and doing what others aren't willing to do. If you want to have more, you've got to become more skilled, more resourceful, more determined. You have to ask, who do I need to become to get where I want to go? So don't focus only on the more you want. Focus on the person you need to become to deserve it. Because once you start growing in that direction, the rest will follow. Remember, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So if you want more in life, the answer is simple: become more. A lot of people wait for things to change. They wait for the economy to improve, for their circumstances to shift, for someone else to fix what's broken. They think, if only the world would change, then everything would be better. But here's the hard truth: the world isn't waiting for your permission to do anything. It's moving on whether you're ready or not. The question is, are you ready to take control of your own path, regardless of what's happening around you? You see, change doesn't start with the world. It starts with you. It starts with your choices, your decisions, and the way you show up every single day. It's about recognizing that you have the power to influence your reality regardless of the circumstances. The world doesn't need to change for you to take charge of your life. You don't need to wait for someone to give you the green light. You don't need to wait for your boss, your partner, or the economy to turn around. What you need is to change yourself first, your mindset, your habits, your actions. The moment you change the way you think, everything else starts to follow. The minute you start showing up differently, the world begins to respond differently. The opportunities you were once blind to start showing up. The people who were once indifferent to your efforts start noticing. And the roadblocks you saw before seem to fade away. Why? Because the world isn't just responding to your circumstances, it's responding to the energy and attitude you bring to it. When you change the way you interact with the world. You start looking for solutions instead of problems. You start seeing possibilities instead of limitations. You start acting with purpose, and the world can't help but react to that. But here's the catch: it's not always easy. Changing yourself means changing the way you think, which can be uncomfortable. It means challenging your old beliefs and stepping out of your comfort zone. It means creating new habits that align with the life you want, even when it feels hard or when others are telling you to slow down. And that's exactly where the magic happens. When you change yourself, you give the world a new version of you, one that's stronger, wiser, more focused, and more determined. And once you do that, everything around you starts to shift. The opportunities you've been waiting for. They were always there, you just couldn't see them before. The people you've been hoping would support you. They start stepping up because they're seeing the change in you, the circumstances that were holding you back. They start to loosen because your attitude has become the driving force, not your situation. You don't need the world to change to succeed. You don't need perfect conditions. What you need is to change the way you think about the world, and the world will begin to change in response. When you show up differently, the world shows up differently for you. So stop waiting for permission to succeed. Stop waiting for the right moment, the perfect opportunity, or the ideal conditions. Take control of the one thing you can always change: yourself. It's like turning the key to a door you never thought would open. When you shift, the world shifts with you. You don't have to wait for it to change. You simply have to decide to be the change you're waiting for. Because when you change yourself, you unleash a force that no external circumstances can resist. The world will always respond to someone who's ready to lead their own life. So many people spend their time waiting. They wait for the economy to turn around, for their circumstances to improve, or for someone else to fix what's broken in their lives. They look at the world around them and say, if only things were different, I could be different. If only the world would change, I could do what I need to do. But here's the hard truth. The world is never going to change on your terms. It's not waiting for you to get ready. It's not going to ask you what you need or give you permission to step up. The world will keep moving whether you're ready or not. And if you keep waiting for it to change for you, you'll be stuck in the same place year after year. The real key to everything, the secret that most people miss, is this: don't wait for the world to change. Change yourself and watch the world respond. Change starts within. It starts with you and your own mindset, your own actions, and your own way of looking at the world. It's about taking responsibility for your life and understanding that the external circumstances will never be perfect. So you have to create the internal foundation that allows you to rise above them. When you change the way you see things, everything changes. When you start shifting your mindset, you stop waiting for the world to give you opportunities and you start creating your own. You stop waiting for someone to give you permission to succeed and you take ownership of your future. You stop waiting for your environment to be perfect and you start making the most of what you have. Here's the thing. We are all conditioned to believe that change comes from the outside. We're taught to wait for the right conditions, the right timing, the right moment. We look for the world to align with our desires before we take action. But the reality is that the moment you change your attitude, your approach, and your energy, the world starts to change around you. When you shift the way you think, the way you talk to yourself, and the way you engage with others, you become a magnet for the life you want. Opportunities that were once hidden in plain sight begin to show up. People who were once distant or indifferent start to notice you and your efforts. Your problems don't magically disappear, but your ability to face and overcome them becomes stronger. It all starts with this: you becoming the person who attracts the life you want. You don't need to wait for others to change. You need to become the kind of person who is ready to take on the challenges, rise above the obstacles, and create the life you envision. The world responds to the energy and actions you put out into it. Let's take a closer look. You're in a situation where things are tough, maybe financially, maybe in your relationships, maybe with your health. The natural reaction is to look outward. If only I had more money, or if only I had the right partner. But what if, instead of waiting for those things to change, you start changing how you approach them? What if you take full responsibility and start asking yourself, what can I do right now to make this situation better? How can I show up differently? That's the turning point. That's where things begin to shift. Because when you begin to change how you approach life, when you start changing yourself, the world around you begins to respond. You can't change everything, but you can always change how you respond. You can always change how you think. You can always change the actions you take. And when you do that, you'll see that the world has a funny way of reacting to a person who is in motion, who is taking responsibility, and who is showing up differently. You don't need the world to change for you to move forward. You just need to decide that you're going to change now. And once you do, you'll begin to attract what you've been waiting for, but it will come on your terms. Because when you become the person who takes control of their own life, the world has no choice but to respond. You create the momentum, you set the tone. And the opportunities, the relationships, and the success you've been waiting for begin to align with the person you've become. So stop waiting. Stop sitting back hoping that things will change on their own. Stop waiting for the world to give you what you want. Take charge of your own life, change your mindset, and watch how the world begins to respond to the new version of you. Because when you change, the world doesn't stay the same. It can't.